Welcome to The Pivot, where we explore the shifts that open new possibilities for how we see, act, and navigate the world. Right now, so much is changing faster than we can make sense of. It's easy to feel unmoored, caught between an unraveling past and a future that's still, taking shape. But there are those who can already see what's emerging, beyond the noise, beyond the confusion. In each episode, I sit down with visionaries, thinkers, practitioners, and pioneers who are not just imagining the future, but actually living it. They're sensing what's next and mapping the way forward. So if you're wondering how to navigate this shifting landscape, how to stay grounded, adapt, and even thrive, you're in the right place. This is not about quick fixes or the 7 steps to be more effective. This is about asking the right questions of yourself, of each other, of life, learning how to make sense of this changing terrain and how to move in it. You don't have to figure it out alone. I've got you covered. This is The Pivot. Welcome.
For this episode, it's just you and me. I'm trying something new here. From time to time, I'm going to share an important piece of content or reflections that is emerging from my work in The Pivot. I'll intersperse these with my ongoing conversations and dialogues with guests. But I hope you find these informative and provocative. Please do let me know. In this episode, I'm exploring what I see leaders will need as they navigate greater uncertainty. One of the key aspects of their pivot. And this applies to all of us. This will be key capacities in your pivot. It's about sense making, future sensing, and intelligence gathering. Enjoy. Why the strongest signals appear the weakest. When your gut knows what your data doesn't. What I'm talking about is intelligence that doesn't look like intelligence. Not too long ago, I was working with a senior executive who's leading a major reorganization, the kind that affected hundreds of people and shaped the company's future. He had everything aligned. He had board approval, stakeholder buy-in, and detailed processes well in place. By every measure, he should have been moving full speed ahead and feeling good about it. But something was holding him back. Despite all the green lights, he felt unusually cautious. It really was unusual for him. He was a fast mover. There were subtle signals, things he was picking up, a nudge, like a brief sidebar cluster after a meeting, or slight changes in voice or typical patterns in certain individuals. Something was off. Things that someone would easily miss. But there was something in his gut that just wouldn't settle. Now, in their culture, concerns weren't openly expressed, especially about leadership decisions. But something was telling him he didn't have the real buy-in that he thought he had. Now, many leaders would have pushed through. The data looked good, the timeline was tight, and stakeholders were expecting action. In our session, we explored what these whispers might have been signaling. And instead of pushing through, I had him start exploring what his hesitation might have been showing him, what it might have been revealing. In one of our conversations, he recalled that when he joined in these conversations, he could remember now, they'd often shift to safer topics. And as he began tuning into these subtle signals, such as the actual quality of post-meeting discussions or an energy shift when discussing certain aspects of the plan, a deeper intelligence started to emerge. The reorganization, while structurally sound, hadn't adequately considered the human impact. He discovered long-tenured employees were feeling that their expertise had been marginalized. And cultural dynamics that took years to build were at risk. Now, that intelligence had been there all along. in his somatic reactions and in the subtle relational dynamics in what people were not saying. But it took developing a different kind of listening to recognize these as strategic information rather than personal anxiety, for example. So over the following month, he began paying a different kind of attention, not to manage or fix, but to sense what his team was processing that hadn't yet made it into official channels. Those insignificant hallway whispers led to several significant upgrades to the strategy. It actually positioned his leadership team to pivot and respond when industry requirements shifted 6 months later. You see, the future had been present in those conversations all along, but it took developing different listening to recognize them as intelligence rather than noise. Beyond trend analysis. During my intelligence career, I learned that the most valuable information rarely comes through official channels. Actually, almost never. It emerges in casual asides, in what people assume you already know, or in the context they provide without realizing its significance. That's gold. The same principle applies to leadership. The most profound shifts announce themselves quietly. They show up in persistent questions that make you uncomfortable, or in patterns that don't fit existing categories. Sometimes they're even embedded in the nagging thoughts that your industry's fundamental assumptions are shifting. So you see, future sensing isn't about prediction. It's about developing the capacity to recognize what's already emerging, but before it becomes obvious. Here's the paradox. Weak signals appear weak precisely because they don't fit our current frameworks. By the time the signal becomes strong enough for traditional analysis, the window for advantage has often closed. Through my work with leaders navigating unprecedented complexity in the pivot, I've noticed 4 essential capacities. I call them the 4 domains of future sensing. The first is somatic intelligence. Your nervous system processes information faster than your analytical mind. That unease in the boardroom, the shift in your breathing when considering certain scenarios. These aren't distractions from strategic thinking. They're data points that your mind just hasn't processed yet. It hasn't caught it. So the question for this is, what does your body know that your thinking hasn't caught up to? The second is relational field awareness. Sometimes the most valuable signals are often in the quality of the silence between people, or those energy shifts during team meetings, the team dynamics. Conversations that suddenly dry up when leadership enters the room. That's a powerful flag. This is relational field awareness. The question is, what's happening in the space between people that might be more important than actually what's being said? The third is edge walking. Here's what I mean. The center of your organization efficiently processes the existing reality. The edges process emerging reality first. So for example, your newest employees, or your most unusual customers, people in adjacent industries, they're often living in the future you're trying to plan for. The question here is, when did you last have a substantive conversation with someone at the periphery of your world? The fourth is question holding. Most leaders rush to answer questions. Future sensing leaders learn to live with questions, especially the ones that make them uncomfortable. The questions that you can't answer are often pointing toward what's trying to emerge. This is where you slow down. You're not so quick to try to solve them. You let the question work you. The question for question holding is what persistent question has been following you around that you've been trying to solve rather than live with? So these are the 4 domains of future sensing. I'll give you a couple of questions to ponder this week. Don't be so quick to answer them. Let them work on you. The first is, what subtle pattern or feeling have I been dismissing as not strategic enough? The second, what are the people at the edges of my organization seeing that I might be missing? Third, what would I notice if I paid as much attention to the energy and relational dynamics as to the content of my meetings? Again, this takes some skill building, some practice. Future sensing develops through practice, not analysis. The intelligence advantage. In a world where everyone has access to the same data, competitive advantage comes from sensing what's emerging before it shows up in reports. Now, this isn't mystical thinking. This is practical intelligence gathering at the speed of complexity. The leaders who will thrive aren't those who will eliminate uncertainty. Instead, they are those who develop the capacity to navigate with it, learn from it, and even be nourished by it. The signal isn't buried in the noise. Often, the signal is what we've been calling the noise. So your future sensing capability isn't just about getting ahead of trends. It's actually about developing the kind of presence that can hold space for what wants to emerge, both for yourself and for the people who depend on your guidance. The future is whispering. The question is, are you listening? I leave you with the questions, what weak signals are you catching in your leadership landscape? I'd love to hear about the subtle patterns you're starting to notice. And for leaders ready to develop their future sensing capability, let's explore what becomes possible when you learn to catch what's emerging before it becomes obvious. Feel free to leave comments, send me a direct message, schedule a call. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe and include a rating. These reviews make a difference. And if you know anyone who might benefit from understanding the times we're in and the need for the pivot, please forward it to them. As always, thank you for tuning in to The Pivot, where we meet at the edges, we explore the in-between, and we stay with what's unfolding. Until next time, keep listening, keep feeling, keep exploring, and keep finding your way. This is Dave Schoof at The Pivot. Go well.